Imagine yourself in this scenario. You find yourself focused on a time-sensitive task when suddenly, and without warning, an email reaches your inbox with a SQL query attached. The query author, unknown. Its purpose, equally unknown. The email beckons you to alter said query by end of day. Despite your intuition's warning, you cautiously double-click the attachment, then freeze in horror as a screen shocks you with this monstrosity, and your heart succumbs to despair as your afternoon is lost. Nay, you are lost in the syntax horror of nested subqueries. Hi there, my name is Jared Kuehn, and perhaps you've run into a situation like this, albeit not necessarily so dramatic. And if that's the case, what should you be doing to try and solve it? Well, probably the simplest way of solving the problem is by defining a coding standard, a way that for an organization, you can keep your code base consistent across the entire organization. Now, what does it take? Well, obviously you need to define the standard, and I only have 5 minutes to explain, so I'll give you one piece of advice when defining your standard. Pick 6 properties or less when trying to define your standard. Why? Well, the human brain, typically once you get to 7 objects or more, the human brain has a hard time keeping track of things. And as we all know from our technical counterparts, things that stay in memory end up being more performant, right? We want our human brains to be the same when it comes to something like a coding standard. So make sure you define that standard nice and simple. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. A 6 property coding standard turns code from this into this. Beautiful. Second thing you've got to do is you've got to think about your sales pitch. Something like a coding standard is encouraging for quality of product within your organization. And sometimes that can be something difficult to argue about when budget's tight or time is light. So what are you going to do? Well, first of all, here's how you don't sell the idea of coding standards to your organization.
Behold my coding standard! Adopt it henceforth or forever face my judgment!
Okay, here's how you do sell the idea to your organization. With better coding standards in place, our organization will succeed as a collaborative, successful environment. And our code will be beautiful too. Okay, I think the latter one's a little bit easier to understand, right? Think about that. Get your sales pitch in place because you've got a large audience to get on board. Especially talking T-SQL, getting people on board isn't just as simple as saying your dev team has a coding standard. It's not even about your analysts also having a coding standard. It is your citizen developers, the people in your organization working on the business side of the business. They should be adopting the coding standard as well, because ultimately at some point they're going to want to communicate with their technical counterparts. If you get everybody on the standard up front, it's much easier to have that communication with one another. And then finally, what does it mean to actually adopt the standard? Well, you've got the standard, so adopting it, I encourage you to implement 2 things. First of all, define your keeper of the standard. Okay, so I'm a D&D nerd that likes epic things, but you want somebody who's going to prioritize making sure that your coding standard is well defined and more importantly that people are on board with implementing it. The second thing, if you're not doing it already, is code reviews. While code reviews are great for making sure that the code is ready and steady and good to go for production, you also can take that extra step and make sure that the code follows your coding standard. Just be ready to plan your project timelines because once your code gets out into production, it's much harder to make those changes. So catch those coding standard flaws before it gets to production. You'll save yourself a lot of time. Follow these couple tips and you'll be well on your way to implementing a coding standard that will help your company collaborate better on your T-SQL code. That's it for this chapter. Thank you for watching, and if you like this kind of content, check out my YouTube channel, DataBard, for more content like this. For now, I am DataBard, and I'll see you in the next chapter.